Hi, my name is Moshe Kindler, and I'm the publisher of The Jewish Link.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Kratz. I'm editor of The Jewish Link.
And you're on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. Elizabeth, we have a momentous, very, very special guest here today.
Is it a second-time guest?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say it's actually the first person we've ever repeated, and we typically don't look to repeat people.
Right.
But he actually is repeatable because he's in a new place, and he is in a different. He's not in a different field. He's not in a different profession, but he's in a new organization, and his name is Maury Litwack, who's a friend, a former neighbor. He left us in Teaneck, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold it against him too much. Maury, trying to follow Maury's career from, let's go backwards, from Teach Coalition, the Orthodox Union. Where else has he been? Where has he not been, I guess?
I think you work for the state of Florida, right?
Yeah.
I knew all of this because I profiled Maury many years ago.
But we're here with our guest, our friend, Maury Litwack, who started a new organization. Okay, and it's Jewish Voters Unite, and we are really excited to hear about this. Certainly our readers are excited, our listeners are able to excited. Maury, welcome to the Jewish Link, and happy to have you back.
It's great to be here in the Jewish Link. And as I said last time I was here, I think I was one of the first guests, but I wasn't one of the new to the Jewish Link. I've followed the Jewish Link since before I lived in Jersey, and it was published. And then we get it all the time. Love the Jewish Link. And so I do this interview not just to educate the community and talk about this really exciting work that we're doing, but also so that I'm a celebrity in my own home. So that when my family members say, you made in the Jewish Link, I always, it's a big deal. When they see themselves in their school, it's a picture, it's a big deal. So if Abba gets in the Jewish Link, it's a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing feedback.
That reminds me, by the way, we really have to make sure it's prominent. Let's get a good picture, okay?
Yeah, we got to get a good picture.
Make sure there's only one Litwack in there that week. I don't want any of my kids in there that week. That's the key.
You don't want to share the spotlight?
Yeah, no, only one Litwack that week.
We can definitely arrange that, and I'm actually really happy about that because you're the first adult, I think, that really was just told us that he wants to be a celebrity in his own home. I love that.
Right.
100%. And then the only way to do that is the Jewish Link. I don't know how else you're going to do that.
It is a bit of a magic. I hope it continues that the Jewish Link spans generations in people's houses. It's a Shabbos paper. It's many things, but it's a Shabbos paper for everyone. So I think it's a benefit for us, and the fact that more than one person reads every copy extends our reach. And people get different things out of it too. Like my kids, for example, with the memes. Like I get a lot of feedback about the memes, as you know, I basically have to keep up. I have to keep the quality up.
Absolutely.
I have to say
there's a level of excellence that we expect out of you. And by the way, I'll say I usually go to the meme thing, the funny ones first. I'll go to that and other things. I have my staples that as I said last time, that I still go to every time. Yeah. Obviously, what you write every week, I gotta read what the.
I don't write every week, but definitely. Well, actually, you'll like what you wrote this week. Yeah. The point is that definitely Maury has been on top of our memes.
Yeah.
Really, you've been one of our biggest meme guys.
All right, so send good ones that you find.
We have to introduce.
Because my son, every week, at least one meme, he'll say to me, "Mom, why is this funny?" And I'll be like,
we
like a tough crowd.
We like that, and that's everything we do. What I love about Jewish Link is it's got a lot of different things for the family. The idea outside of the Jewish world that you could have a print publication that everybody digests and does that is the power of the network of the Orthodox Jewish community in particular. The idea that we turn everything off and for this period of time we're all together, and the link is part of the evening, it's in the morning, and you're reading that is also why I'm so excited about this organization. Because when people said to me, can you actually get voters to unite and turn out to vote? Can you actually do that? Because most Americans don't vote, as you both know. I point to our community where every one of us has the ability to pick up our phones, reach out to hundreds of our family and friends, post in a WhatsApp group, post in other groups and say, this matters to the Jewish community and you need to do something. And people respond to that unbelievably, which is very different than other parts of the American population where they're going to say, well, what's happening on Fox News or what's happening on CNN or what's happening in the New York Times? We have a community that's so interconnected that when you imagine the power of the vote and our ability to mobilize and then channel that, it's unbelievable.
100%.
Right. So tell us about the new organization. What's it called? What's its role? And what are your biggest new projects?
Yeah. So the new organization is called Jewish Voters Unite. And the idea behind that is really that we're united as a group, as a community, to turn out the vote. We recognize the fact that people are not going to vote the same way. We recognize that there are Jewish Democrats, there's Jewish Republicans, there's Jewish independents, and I'm sure there's other parties being invented as we speak. And we recognize that. But at the end of the day, the idea is that Jewish voter turnout is something that we should really care about in America. And there's so many other groups that care about voter turnout. There's youth turnout. There is turnout in the Hispanic community. There's turnout in the African American community. There are organizations that mobilize that vote. Why has there never been a serious effort behind voter mobilization within the Jewish community? And the reason we think is because, as is so often in the case, is that there hasn't necessarily been a moment in time to make that happen. And I would say that there's a positive and negative happening right now that has created this moment in time to create this organization, Jewish Voters Unite, which is, the negative is that anti-Semitism is rising at unbelievable levels, and people want to know what they can do to make a difference. And when you look at voting, in particular on the local and state level, in primaries where there's very low turnout, which we could talk about, in elections where there's very low turnout, the ability for us to mobilize and make a difference means we could put elected officials in there who can increase security funding, who can combat anti-Semitism, who can make anti-Semitism an actual hate crime with enforceable teeth behind it, which legislators are not doing on the local and state level unless we go out and vote. And so it's a tangible thing. The negative is that anti-Semitism and the rise of it has gotten us to this place. Mm-hmm. The positive is that, as we've seen since October 7th, and this is one of the reasons, the impetus of me starting this organization was, since October 7th, we've seen the community, right, left, and middle, turn out to vote and saying, anti-Semitism is on the ballot and we're going to do something about it.
Right.
And that's a very big positive, which has helped create this organization.
Was it the George Latimer win of the Democratic primary? Was that last November already? It was this past November.
Yeah.
So he was seated in Congress, right?
Yeah.
He was seated already. So he basically won his primary on a platform of fighting a fellow candidate who was anti-Semitic.
I think that if you look at the I'm going to come back to the Bowman-Latimer race. Okay. I think it's very important.
You were really involved.
Very involved, very involved. And that's one of the things that I started getting a lot of people knocking on my door and saying we got to do more work there. I want to go back to 2019.
Okay.
In 2019, there was a Miami Beach election. And I'm not sure you know this or not. There's a lot of Jews in Miami Beach.
Yep.
But when it comes to voting, if you don't show up, you're invisible. And there was a local Miami Beach race, and there was a Jewish candidate who was running. And people said, we really need to get this person out to vote. And so we did basic stuff, like what I'm talking about, which is knocking on doors, calling our friends and family, texting them, saying, turn out to vote. And the local Jewish community in Florida was able to win that election by 2 votes. Remarkable, 2 votes. You always hear about it, you always read about it, and you say it's impossible, but 2 votes. After that, we started doing some work locally in New York, New Jersey, and Florida, similar things, just basic ground game. And we started winning different elections. That gave us a lot of the tools and I would say almost the chizuk necessary to go out there and get the community out to vote. Last year, after October 7th, we got recruited into that Bowman-Latimer race. And the reason why we got recruited in that Bowman-Latimer race is because there was a squad member who had positions, just terrible positions on issues of community cares about. Terrible positions on anti-Semitism, terrible positions on Israel. He said after October 7th that there were propaganda and lies associated with it. Just ridiculous things. And there was a challenger. And what most people didn't realize is that the Jewish community, this is Westchester. It's a giant Jewish community. So people asked us, they said, can you get involved in that race? And
I know your answer was yes. You believed it. I remember.
I believe it was possible to get involved in that race. And so at the time I was at the Teach Coalition, and we were doing this voter turnout work there. And we believe as an organization really could turn out the vote. And we played the role, I would say, almost as a trainer. You know, politics is a contact sport. You're an athlete. We were just training the community. We're saying to the community, look, it's a low turnout primary. If you want to vote in this primary, you need to be registered as a Democrat. Yep. It's okay. So now I understand the game. I'm an athlete. I want to be out there. You need to make sure you have a plan for mail-in ballots. You need to make sure you have a plan to get your friends and family out to vote. Use technology in your favor. We just trained them. The community stepped up. That race was decided by about 14,000 votes. I'm sorry, that race was decided by about 12,000 votes, and the Jewish community turned out at about 14,000 votes. But what's most remarkable was that is you had shuls turning out at 90%. You had shuls turning out at unbelievable numbers. And the entire country woke up at that point and said, wait a second. There's not always going to be competitive congressional elections where the Jewish community can literally
Be the linchpin.
Can literally send a squad member packing. You're not going to have that many elections like that. What happens if you do that in
Minnesota, maybe? No.
Maybe, but what happens if you do that in a municipal election? What happens if you do that in a gubernatorial election?
Got it.
And that's where this idea of Jewish Voters Unite was really started to seed and started to grow. And that's really the idea behind it overall, which is we want to put you as a community in a position to fight. And we want to put you in. To do that, you need to be registered to vote. To do that, you need to have a ground game where you're going and turning out your friends and family to vote. And you need to step up. You need to say, I am a voter, which is the best way to start to. I'm a voter means you're voting every election. And if you're in a place like New Jersey, that means you're voting every single year because we have elections every single year. And that kind of work and effort and mobilization, I truly believe is possible with an unbelievable community that we have.
I hear. It's not just about getting Jewish folks to vote, Jewish community to vote. It's getting the vote in bigger numbers. Like, are you looking for like 10, 15, 20% changes in every like, for example, the upcoming elections? Are we looking to see, like, for example, that Latimer number, they won by 12,000. Like, what was the Jewish community voting at before? And are you able to pin down like how many more Jews actually voted?
Yeah, so I'll tell you the following is,
if you don't know the answer.
No, I'll let me say the following. Did you know that about a third of Americans don't know who their governor is? They don't know the name of their governor. Okay? Did you know that in municipal elections, the average turnout is about 10 to 15%? Did you know in school board elections, it could be as low as 8%? Now, when you hear that and you put together, let's imagine a scenario where you put together 100 people, 100 people. And they're all going to have different opinions, etc. But imagine if the 100 people that you put together, 8 of them had the most radical, crazy opinions. And imagine if the other 92 had to listen to the 8 opinions. Mm-hmm. Imagine if you just said, we're trying to figure out where we're going to go to dinner. And 92 of them have all these amazing restaurants and others they advertise in the Jewish Link. 92 of them have all these great places that we can eat at. And 8 of them say, you know what we want to do? We want to go to the park down the block and have a picnic at 11 o'clock in the middle of a storm. And now all the other 92 of us have to go and do that. That is elections in American politics. That is a reason why the radical right and the radical left win. Because they win in those municipal and local primaries elections where there's super low turnout. People don't know the name of their governor, and that's why they win. And in Bowman Latimer, the average turnout previously in congressional race, 30%. The Jewish communities turning out at 60%. That's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. That's unbelievable.
Okay, so the primary elections are key, especially in the case of radical candidates. But what about races where there are associated people who are both Jewish, candidates pitted against each other? What does the Jewish voter do then?
Well, I think, look, we're not looking for a monolith vote. And I think that we always have that joke of 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Mm-hmm. I think the idea that anybody in the Jewish community could convince anybody in the community to vote exactly this way is preposterous. And I don't think that's what we're looking for. We're looking for Jewish voter turnout. Okay. My metric of success, and I think community metrics of success, is that there's an upcoming New Jersey gubernatorial race. Yep. There's multiple Jewish candidates running in that race. There is a upcoming New York City mayoral race. Okay, there are 2 Jewish candidates running in that race also. In the gubernatorial race and in the New York City mayoral race, there are positions that are positions across the board, Jewish, not Jewish, which are great and amazing on issues we care about and horrific positions. Some of those positions are shared by Jews, Jewish candidates. Some of them, they're amazing, are shared by non-Jewish candidates. It just depends on the race and candidate. I think the community has two responsibilities. One is the community has a responsibility to turn out to vote. Most ills are solved if we turn out to vote. If we turn out at 80, 90% clip, etc., and we have some disagreements over who, what, where, we're still winning.
Because you're saying just as long as our numbers are shown.
Our numbers are showing. People don't understand that I can go into my phone, and it's off right now because we have this amazing interview, and I'll get in a lot of trouble. But I can go on my phone and I can find out if Elizabeth and Moshe, what they're registered to vote as, and whether and whether or not they voted. I can find that out. It's public record.
We have
not who you voted for, but whether.
Yeah.
And that's incredible to most people. People are like, what? If I know it, then the politicians know it as well. And I can't tell you how many communities around the country I've been to with governors and presidential candidates and others who said to me, "More, the Jewish community doesn't vote. What do I care? They don't vote." I mean, the most famous example of this is in '88 after George H.W. Bush wins. James Baker says, in quote, that he's quoted as saying, "What do I care? The Jews didn't vote for us anyway." Mm-hmm. That's a measurable, tangible piece of American politics. Right. That's what it is.
We also have, not to cut into that piece, which is clearly very important, but we also have a micro level race in, I believe, Scarsdale that we're talking about this coming week in the paper. It's a school board election for Scarsdale, I think. I believe there's 2 Jewish candidates, 2 people associated with Jewish communal issues, and 1 virulently anti-Semitic candidate. And there's 2 spots on that school board. And, our editor out there told us, hey, we got to write about this election. We got to bring it to the attention of voters. Can a vote like this be swayed?
Oh, my goodness. I'm very familiar with this race. Mm-hmm. And yes, the Jewish community could turn on that race and be a difference maker. Absolutely.
Just another few hundred.
My school board race is massive, and that race, which I encourage people to follow and read about, of course they could.
Okay.
And again, the people involved in that who I know were some of the same people who were instrumental in that Bowman-Latimer race.
Right.
So yeah, of course they could in a school board race. The reason why we haven't I don't even know how many people who represent major Jewish communities around America who are horrible on Israel, horrible on anti-Semitism, horrible on basic criminal justice issues the community cares about, who represent large Jewish communities. I can't even count them because we've helped to get them elected by our indifference. Mm-hmm. And the indifference, people like me are responsible for the indifference. It's not the community responsible. I've been in politics for 2 decades. I worked on Capitol Hill. I worked on presidential campaigns. There's a number of us like this. Those people involved in politics have to be willing to coach and work with the community to help educate them on this because it's not the community's fault that those people are elected. It's people in politics putting the community in a position to win. The community is like Tom Brady. We got to be the people like JVU, Jewish Voters Unite. We got to be like Bill Belichick. We're just coaching. The community is Tom Brady. The community steps up every time we say to the community, you have the potential, you have the voice, and you have to do that. But right now, I think that in too many communities, including in New Jersey, we haven't stepped up to the level that we can. I think Jersey has the New Jersey and New York City communities have an unbelievable opportunity to set the tone for the rest of the country. This year, June has a New York City mayor race, New York City council races, New Jersey assembly races, New Jersey governor's races. Imagine at the end of June if people said, wow, they were instrumental in the governor's race, instrumental in the mayor race, instrumental at the local and state level. The narrative will be, what happens in the midterm elections? What does it mean for the Jewish community in the midterm elections? The narrative will be, how could someone who's anti-Semitic get elected president or run for Congress or others? How could they be with this sleeping giant?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Good. Powerful. So how do we get anti-Semites out of Congress?
First off, I got my present. I got my swag. I got my swag for both of you.
Right.
Don't
Kvetch. Oh, cool.
We got the Don't Kvetch vote. We got the Don't Kvetch vote swag. Okay, we're gonna give this out here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put it on for the camera.
Oh, we got the camera. You can see in the camera.
Don't kvetch vote. No problem. I'll take it.
I'll put it on later.
See,
I have to arrange my hair, etc.
and so we have a there you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Does it fit me? I don't know. Okay, got it. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're good. And so we have the Don't Kvetch Vote hat, and the idea behind Don't Kvetch voting is one of our themes, which is people complain all the time about how could my taxes be raised? Why aren't there why do I as a shul or school have to pay for security guards and pay for that anti-Semitism tax? Why isn't the state? Why is my tuition so high?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the state kick in like other states?
Right.
Stop kvetching, start voting.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's it. Don't kvetch, vote. Do something tangible. And this is something that can make a difference.
Yeah.
And I want to share something else, which is that again, we're putting people in a position to win in the community. We're about to open an Englewood voter center, which we're calling our Bergen County Center. We're hoping to have one up in Teaneck also, but we're opening one right near Hummus Elite, right near Zula, right in that area, right there. We're opening where it'll say voter center on it.
Yeah.
That's our 4th voter center. We have one on the west side, the east side, Brooklyn. That's it. We're opening in Queens. We're opening them all over the city. We're opening them in Jersey. We're hoping not to open Bergen County, but statewide. You can come in there and we will help you. You don't know how to register to vote? We're going to coach you on how to do that. You don't know how to get your friends and family to vote? We're going to coach you how to do that. Not so inspired, not into politics. Not into politics. A lot of people say to us, I'm not into politics, Maury. I don't want to vote. I'm not into politics.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you may not be a master chef, but you can still cook.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, for example, last week we had an article on our cover about Linden, New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's a situation where the Linden community of Jews is being zoned out of existence, being zoned out of comfort. The houses are being zoned to be smaller. You can't build a community center or a synagogue in the area because the lot size amount has been shrunk. What can we do in a place like that? Not just in terms of getting them out to vote, but also in talking to potential candidates in that area and saying, "Hey, let's get a candidate to be elected to this zoning board, to be elected to the city council." Are you doing things like that in terms of education, like sort of a candidate development center?
So I think that would be aspirational. I think that's something we'd love to do, to be able to educate candidates on where our positions in the community. I think that would something that'd be amazing. I would say that the community has to recognize the fact that we are interconnected, and when candidates, especially for governor here, are running and they're showing up in Bergen County, or they're showing up in Lakewood, or they're showing up in Metro West, or wherever it is, we should be asking them what's going on in Linden.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening in Linden? Because we were once in that position where we were being zoned out, even in Bergen County. We all know those stories.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens when we meet. If you meet a candidate, you should say, "What's happening in Scarsdale? I heard there's a school board election there." There's an interconnectivity to all this that we have to be. We're one. We really are like one body, and what's happening over here on the right of our hand as a community is going to affect the left of the hand, and what's happening in one ear is going to affect the other ear. We got to be a little more interconnected to these types of things, because politicians talk like that.
Mm.
They say, "Oh, I have a community here. I just got elected." Do you think they know the nuance between modern Orthodoxy and Litvish and Hasidish?
Actually, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because we got a letter yesterday that made me write a entire op-ed, essentially an editor's notebook, about saying, in this article, why didn't we mention the word Hasidish? There's a Hasidic community there. They're not just Jews, they're Hasidic. And I basically explained why what our sect does not matter in government. I feel like this is anti-Jewish discrimination. These people cannot build synagogues in their own neighborhoods. Period. Full stop. The zoning board doesn't care, what type of bekisha we're wearing, or what kind of kippah, or whether we're wearing khakis or a shtreimel. Like, I just think it's completely irrelevant in public life. And that was what I felt needed to be said when we put Linden's Jews on the cover. The whole community is upset about it. It's not just Hasidic community. It's everybody. Everybody can't build a synagogue.
There's unfortunately, there are elected officials who try to divide us,
Right.
and there's community members who try to divide us. And the elected officials try to divide us by saying, well, what happens in Lakewood isn't a concern to what's happening in Bergen County, and vice versa. And there are community members who divide us through that kind of language and saying, well, you have to point that out because that's why they're like almost excusing it and saying, well, they're being zoned because of that.
Yeah.
Because their families are too large.
It's
because their hats are too large.
Yeah. So there's an effort to divide that. I'm very fortunate because I happen to be on about 100 different firm WhatsApp groups around the country. So, there's some constants there that I've learned, including the fact that everybody thinks they have the best cholent, and including the fact that nobody can ever remember what time minion is. All these constants that happen in WhatsApp groups. But one constant also happens is that when there is a actual when someone's nifter in the community, when there's an actual tragedy in the community, all the WhatsApp chats talk about it. Mm-hmm. And there's either davening or there's tefillah. There's tehillim around it. There's something around there. There's action items. People want to take an action. They want to do something. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that we can't divide ourselves. We certainly can't let the politicians divide us. And I don't believe that there is the level of nuance from the average elected official to know the difference between all of our different communities and what's what. And I think we should be cheering for each other and saying we want to win those other elections. Again, to use the sports analogy, we're all on the same team. Mm-hmm. We all we're on the same team. We're all just playing different positions in different places. We're on the same team.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit, Maury, I've gone to a lot of APAC meetings over the years, and the issue always was these candidates would come out of these like school boards or municipal, city government, and they would always end up on the federal level. And APAC was always about kind of like meeting them as they kind of became candidates. In a sense, you're saying is, hey, we gotta engage them. We gotta start even earlier. I know it's aspirational, but I'm just saying we can't just meet them as they're running for their local corrections district. We got to get them. The Jewish community's got to be super engaged with them, even when they're like running for like their town council, or running for their school board.
People. Most of our community, I would say, or super majority of our community, and they're not big fans of Rashida Tlaib and Ilan Omar.
Right.
They were both local elected officials before they were elected.
Heavy Jewish areas.
Congress. They were both there. They were both locally elected beforehand. I would say that I saw some. I think it was someone showed me in New York. I think it was half of the congressional delegation were all from local and state positions previous to this. I'm not saying this to minimize how important local and state elections are, but again, just from a sports perspective, it's like the minor leagues from a politics policy perspective, which is that's where most of the congressional federal elected officials come out of.
Correct.
And if they're lying to you or they're bad on your issues, similar to a pitcher who can't pitch, you should be putting them in the major leagues for you. Mm-hmm. And too often in the community, I hear from people who say, well, they've been okay on our issues. They've been balanced on the issues. I don't accept that. They got to have a really good ERA for the Jewish community to be elevated to the major leagues. I don't accept that. And I think we as a community have to put ourselves in a position where we're turning out to vote, because when we're turning out to vote, we educate ourselves on positions. We educate ourselves on politics, which is instrumental. Absolutely instrumental, especially where extreme right and extreme left is going. If we don't show up and we're not responsible, I'm not sure who's going to show up for us politically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is Jewish Voters Unite endorsing candidates?
No, we can't endorse candidates. But we are. We believe that the and we've heard this from elected officials. Just the sheer turnout and the power of that turnout is monumental. Mm-hmm.
And I think you're also making an assumption that even though we're divided, there are certain issues that we agree on, more or less.
Yeah. I also, again, I would say we're fortunate, and this is somewhat depressing. We're fortunate in that most elections I've looked at that are going to be coming up over the next 18 months, you pretty much have one candidate or two who are really good and one or two who are really bad. The reason why is because you have, for example, the Socialist Movement or the Working Families Party and some of these other groups who are on the far left. And then you have like the Tucker Carlsons and Candace Owens on the far right. I mean, these people, they have platforms, they have followings, and their platforms and followings are typically going to be have anti-Israel positions. Now on the far right, you have conspiratorial theories on Holocaust and things like that, and they're gonna have following. So people associated with either one, or they're gonna have, on the left they have bad positions on Israel, or they have suspect positions on anti-Semitism. The list goes on. So you have candidates who affiliate with these groups. Okay, so they're showing you the record. So that makes life a little easier for us in terms of us just turning out and paying attention.
So what is different about your role at Jewish Floaters Unite as compared to your previous role at Teach?
So Teach, which I was the founder of Teach Coalition, which is this national organization, which I talked about in the previous podcast. Now, obviously, you should be up to date on the pitch meeting in general. I mean, you should have listened to all of these. It's a critical cliffhanger we had in the last meeting.
I think what Elizabeth really was asking is why did you feel like you couldn't do this as the founder of Teach?
I felt that with Teach, we did unbelievable things, and I'm very happy with all the time I spent there and everything that I did, and I'm still as involved as I possibly can be as a volunteer and as the founder. Like I have a lot of input that I still want to give over to different things and ideas, but to me, the voting work that we did, especially after October 7th, I felt that there was something I could do that could have an impact on this growing anti-Semitism, this growing anti-Israel behavior, but also elect people who I think were good on issues that Teach cares about also. And that opportunity, I felt I could really put my full coalesce into. Now, I felt like I had to do it. And so there's an incredibly talented team at Teach that I feel is going to be able to continue the legacy of what I built. But I really believe that you need elected officials who are going to champion the things that we care about. And in order to do so, you need to get them elected. And so after a lot of consultation with a lot of people I trust and respect, I was able to make this move while still making sure that Teach is in the best position possible.
So Jewish Voters Unite is an entirely new organization.
Yeah.
It's not funded by the Orthodox Union,
No.
And it has private funders. It has fundraising.
We're very happy because we got private funding. We got a lot of small donations. We got a lot of people who've been coming up to us on the street. We're doing canvassing and other things like that. People who say, I want to be part of this. We have, as of today, we have close to 600 volunteers involved in it. We started it, launched it officially in December. So we're very excited about it. I mean, it's really, people are starting to be really motivated. I think if people come to that launch that we're doing in Englewood, we're doing a very exciting launch on May 4th called May the 4th Be With You, like the Star Wars theme. I think there's going to be someone in a Darth Vader suit and making sure you register to vote. We're going to have a huge crowd there also. People want to do stuff. They want to get out there and they want to shake the world. And they want to say, I feel like things are not going the way I want to, and I need something to do. And believe it or not, trolling people on social media or sending, having debates upon debates at your table are not going to be as impactful as making sure you're turning out to vote and your friends and family turning out to vote.
You mentioned before about the fact that why there was no Jewish Voters Unite. But there are things like Hispanic voters and like Christian voters.
There are a number. There's the Catholic vote. There's a lot of different.
Who's the biggest comp for you? Who's the most comparable? Who's the is there an organization you're modeled after?
I don't think we're a model. I think our community is so unique. It's hard to model it after there. But I just think that if you Google, you will see almost every group has a voter turnout effort or voter work on that. I think the reason why we've been missing it is because we didn't find that moment to launch it. And I think this is post October 7th and everything we've seen. I think the community is saying we need this. And the response has been unbelievable. I mean, it's been crazy.
And it's way beyond denomination.
And imagine the response once I'm on the pitch meeting. We'll probably have 1,200 volunteers after that.
100. But for the answer is you'll definitely see something that I can guarantee you. And also what I like about it is also you're beyond denominations. I mean, I think you
nonpartisan.
In essence, a lot of your career, even though you weren't just repping Orthodox institutions, but you are definitely coming out. We're coming out of an Orthodox base. Right. I think Jewish Voters Unite has a chance to kind of like maybe move beyond that.
We're hoping that if you're Jewish, you're turning out to vote. We're hoping that if you're Jewish, you're turning out to vote. So far, we've met. It's funny in New York City, we literally have we're putting our information into Russian. We're putting it into, obviously we have people doing Yiddish get out the vote. We have Hebrew get out the vote for the Israeli voters. A lot of Israelis aren't registered to vote. So we're doing this in as many, it's just reflections sort of that broad tapestry that is the Jewish community. So we're excited. People really are responding to it. And there's not one person that we ran into saying, why did you start this? Every person we run to has either assumed this always existed or they can't believe it took us so long to get going. Well, and the only reason we really, look, in all seriousness, the reason why it didn't launch earlier is because I was begging to get on the pitch meeting for sequel and didn't have me on.
Right.
So now I was finally able to get on the pitch meeting for the second time.
That's actually not true, but that's okay. Okay.
We appreciate you, though. We appreciate you.
Every time I'm on the pitch meeting, I'm going to start an organization. That's it. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the things I do want to say, though, about Teach and about the priorities you set as director of Teach, you did change the tapestry of Jews and how they view government. I do think that people saw your success, and what's noteworthy about it is that you basically said, you very clear terms, you said, here is what is possible for us to achieve in government. We can get, I forgot what it was, technology funding, subsidies for security, et cetera. I think there were like 4 items, not too many. It was limited in scope, but it was like, hey, this is what we can achieve. Now we're moving on to saying what we have to do is we assume that these are the things we care about. We assume that we care about the IHRA definition. We assume that you care about security funding for synagogues, the grant program, et cetera. We have to get candidates elected who also support those things. So it's basically just sort of backing up. What you established through Teach still exists.
Right. And I also think that one of the things I used to say a lot at Teach was, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind that is that the table is set and we need to make sure we're on the menu discussing the items at the table and everything else like that. Voting and getting candidates that we want elected and there is about us setting the table. It's before even anyone shows up.
Right.
It's us
like
setting the table.
Back.
Exactly. And us doing that. And I just think that it took me a while, I think myself, even though I'd worked in politics for as long as I am, to appreciate that. I often looked at things and said, it's the advocacy that we do as a community that's so important. But a step before the advocacy, I do believe, is the voting. Mm-hmm. And I think that, again, unfortunately now, there is a moment in time where people feel like things changed after October 7th. Mm-hmm. People felt like also that anti-Semitism in America has changed. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone can agree, extreme right, extreme left, there's a lot of problems on both sides. I'm not going to sit here and debate which side is worse depending on the given day, but it's a problem enough where we're looking for things and actions that we can do. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to show up at a table and around the table are a bunch of people that I can't stand.
Right.
And I want to show up at the table and have set the table and helped and figure out the guest list. That's what I'm looking at doing in politics now. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what everybody should be doing it. Because when I say that I'm one vote, I have my ability to vote. I can coach. I can motivate. I can try to encourage the community. But I'm just one vote. Maybe I'm 2 now because Elizabeth and Moshe are here. And maybe Elizabeth and Moshe go out and get 10 of their friends. And now we're 23 and on and on.
So how do we keep it going? Meaning October 7th, I know you're opening voter centers. How do we keep it? Like one of the things we see is a lot of great ideas come through our paper, a lot of great initiatives. Many of them sometimes run out of steam. How are we going to keep that steam, that head of steam up?
I think we should make it clear to the community members that that simple actions can change the world, and simple actions can change the world. And one of the things that I'll tell you a story that to me of this, which is in the late 1920s, early 1930s, the KKK went around America and asked people to form groups. And what did they mean by form groups? They wanted every person who attended any KKK rally or anything else like that to get a group of 10 of their friends to vote, turn out to vote, and vote for the KKK platform. When that KKK platform ended up electing governors who supported the KKK.
David Duke.
It ended up electing members of Congress who supported the KKK. Now, anybody who knows American history knows that lead up into the 1930s, when Jews were fleeing the Holocaust, when there was anti-Semitism in America, You had elected officials who were elected by the KKK.
Mhm.
What happens if we, as a community, go out and ask, every one of us says, I'm responsible for getting 10 of my friends to vote. Making sure that 10 of my friends go out to vote. That's it. Simple actions over a period of time can be transformational. It's almost 100 years since they pulled that off. What can we do? And I think that's the kind of things that we have to be talking about in our community. Everyone being responsible for 10 of their friends. When we go and we talk about the 600 volunteers that we have, that's what we're saying to them. Can you be responsible for your friends? Can you get them out? And a lot of them say, I can be responsible for 100. And guess what? Do you know what it takes for a campaign to go and pull 100 votes? They'll spend $500 a voter. Some spend $1,000 a voter. Michael Bloomberg, one of the richest people in the world, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars per voter just to win a presidential. One part of a presidential campaign.
Mhm.
Campaigns will spend endless amounts for one vote. And you have the ability to convince your friends and family to turn out to vote, to go to the polls with you, to get 100 people, and you don't do that? That's what we have to do. Simple actions over a period of time can make transformational impact. And this is an environment that we understand, and this is an environment that we can be good at, and this is an environment that we need to do. Not just for now, but for the future, for our children and grandchildren.
I just want to end, by the way, Elizabeth. I had a whole. Maury doesn't know this, but I had one of his biggest donors come over to me when you were soliciting. Okay, and I didn't tell you about this, but he said, "Yeah, Maury's starting a new organization." This was, I think, in November, December, and he's like, "Well, Moshe, what do you think?" Based on, and he was looking at me as like, is Maury someone to invest in? so I said, I think Maury has mostly achieved everything he said. Yeah. So he was very happy with that answer, and I think he did ultimately donate. So you don't owe me commission, by the way, so don't worry. Mm-hmm. But I was very happy to give that kind of endorsement.
Yeah.
So
we look forward to seeing great things from you, just like we've seen before. I think it's exciting, and it's an exciting time to be a Jewish voter. And I look forward to not kvetching and voting. I'll wear my hat. Appreciate it.
It's a trilogy. We'll come back to 2028. We're next presidential campaign. It's a trilogy.
And hopefully by then you will not have been Jewish Voters Unite will be even bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Bear to show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Success to success.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. If you would like to participate or be in touch with us in any way, please email us at editor@jewishlink.news. And follow us and find our podcast wherever you find podcasts.